Let's bring in the election and the good governance advocate, Mr. Zenwanwagu. Thank you so much indeed for, the issues of politics and how it affects governance was at the center of what was discussed today, how democracy can help build the lives of our people. And I read your interview on the cable, and some of the things that you said, it was as though I was listening to you reading it, because I know the way you sound. But let me ask you, how fundamental was today's conversation for Nigeria's progress?
Well, Sean, like Kefu will say, I think you have a penchant for making people talk. But truly, I think the Strengthening Democracy Conference is not just timely, it is auspicious at this point, especially when you look at the fact that the politicians themselves seems to be embarrassed by their own, the things that happen within, even internally in their own fold. The lamentations majorly were, absence of internal party democracy, and all of those issues. But beyond that, the threat to democracy is that majority of Nigerians, and Nigerians in their numbers, are beginning to ask the question, just like it's being asked in other parts of the country, is this democracy worth the trouble? And this conference is to see how we can reignite confidence in the Nigerian people in democracy, and see also how they can begin to have confidence in the institutions that support democracy. That's what this is about.
But did you have a feeling in the room? And I hear a lot of people talk. The vice president was represented by Mr. Baba Ahmed. Yusuf Fayemi, former governor of Ekiti, stayed there. Yusuf, former governor of Kaduna, stayed there. The man who considered defeat in Ghana was there. He's got a lot of experience to talk about democracy and how it feels when you lose an election and you are able to say, yes, I concede the faith. Although the Ghanaian experience, as soon as you cross the 52-53% votes, you know that you have either won or lost the election. And you saw Atiku Abubakar, who spoke later in the evening and was speaking about Nigeria's democracy and what is next. You saw Peter Obi there speaking about how those who steal public funds to run for elections and a whole lot of other. Do you have a feeling that the political class have gotten it? That they've seen the handwriting on the wall, that they've seen the signal that the Nigerian people are aware? Do you have a sense that that awareness is there?
Yes, beyond these people that you mentioned, there were eminent scholars there. Professor Jibrin Ibrahim was there, Ibano was there, Professor Remi Aide, and the rest of them. So it's actually a mirror meeting, if you like, where scholars, civil society people are placing a mirror in the presence of the politicians and say, can you see your reflection? What are you seeing? The things that you see, does it excite you? And
is this the kind of society that we dream of?
That we dream of. And then if you are not excited about this, what then should we do? And then you have scholars saying these are the things that needs to happen, and these are the things that needs to happen. But more importantly is the genuine concerns of Nigerians about their livelihood, that whether this democracy is bringing, houses for the poor, whether people can go to school, public schools, universities, whether security of life and property can be guaranteed under this, the kind of atmosphere that we have. And that's why I said that perhaps the question you are asking about what are they seeing, I think with the enthusiasm that conference elicited, one of the main tests for me in knowing whether a conference is good or bad is when you are having demands, when people are calling and saying, you did not invite us, and this is sad, you had this kind of meeting and we were not invited. And then those who come are using the platform to think, in terms of charting a pathway for. But for us, the conveners, Center LSD, Parker, WFD, and CDD, the thinking is that this democracy needs the support of the majority of Nigerians. This democracy needs strong institutions that can support democracy. This is, democracy will need leaders with integrity to be able to drive the future that Nigeria requires.
Let's take a quick breather, everyone. And when we return, my conversation with Ezenwa Wagu, we get to a particular point that you might get upset, you might get angry. But the challenge here is whether or not you know what to do with your anger about the Nigerian society and the Nigeria you see today is up to you. But wait until when we start that conversation that will get you really upset. We'll be right back, everyone. So much. A few things that I need to remind you of, lest we forget. The true purpose of public office, lest we forget. Public office is neither a privilege nor a reward. It is a solemn duty, a contract bound by the will of the people and the dictates of the Constitution. Yet decades of systemic corruption and the self-serving ambitions of many in office have rendered this truth a forgotten relic in Nigeria's political sphere. According to the Corruption Perception Index by Transparency International, Nigeria ranks very low out of 180 countries, a damning indictment of the state of governance, where federal systems in countries like the United States and Germany use devolved powers to strengthen local governance, uplift communities, and ensure fiscal accountability. Our own federalism has devolved into a feeding through for political elites. Let's not forget, governance should be about building roads, schools, hospitals, and industry, not private mansions, luxury cars, and offshore accounts. The Nigerian Constitution enshrines the principles of justice, equity, and development. Yet these ideals are daily trampled upon by those who see public office as a gateway to personal enrichment. Let's not forget, public office without a passion for people is a desecration of trust. Corruption has impoverished Nigerians with over 130 million citizens classified as multidimensionally poor. According to the Nigeria National Bureau of Statistics, the civil service, once a bastion of efficiency, has become an enabler of corruption, with ghost workers, contract inflation, and embezzlement is the order of the day. Contrast these with nations like Canada, where a transparent system of fiscal transfers ensures local governments meet citizens' needs, or India, where grassroots development through Panchayati Raj empowers communities directly. What stops us from learning from these examples? Lest we forget, leadership is service, not enjoyment. It demands sacrifice, vision, and accountability. If your ambition is devoid of a genuine desire to uplift the downtrodden or transform society, you have no business in public office. Nigeria must rise above the culture of greed and patronage that has held it back and forge a path where leadership truly means service to the people. Lest we forget, the time for transformative leadership is now. It's just a reminder, everyone, some of the things that we should not forget. Let's go back to our conversation with Ezenwa Wagu. Thank you so much indeed for your time tonight. And part of what we wanted to remind our people is that governance is about the people of Nigeria. Do you think there is that realization? Because juicy offices, juicy position, and those are the attraction for public office these days.
Yeah, Professor Samegu at the conference was talking about how we get involved in elite fights and not the things that really should concern us. And the fight for the elite is what? It's about who becomes president, who becomes governor, who becomes what. And so until this realization, when you were making us not to forget, I was just casting my mind back to say all the cool speeches that people have read in this country, all that has happened is the play around corruption, the abandonment of people's interest, and all of those issues. But those who take over from them, that point that you dragged about learning, what can be learned, is why this conference is holding. The conference is being held, is a learning curve, is a place for conversation, that it is time that we are able to come back, reflect, and say, look, we've done 25 years. Yes, quite all right, certain level of progress has been made, but the challenges that continue to beset our democracy is able or are able to cause a reversal if we don't do something immediately. And what you have raised in this, let's not forget, are those things that can cause that reversal if we do nothing about it. For more than 40 years, the Transparency Corruption Index for Nigeria has been on the nosedive. And nobody, we are not shaken by it. There is nobody that feels any sense of urgency. But what needs to happen is to see whether, first and foremost, it is even possible to build some elite consensus around what should be done.
So now, Mr. Nwangu, I'll drag you to one place that I teased earlier before we went on that break. And there are those who will say, look, if you fear politicians, well, your fear may be in the right place, but fear civil servants in this country. And that those who say, go to Maitamas of this world, go to the Lekki of this world, that most of the buildings and the most expensive houses you find there are owned by civil servants who may not in 100 years be able to afford if they were saving without spending a couple out of their salaries. How did they come by it? Go to civil service offices in Nigeria today. The corruption enablers of the politicians are in the civil service. And the people point accusing fingers to the politicians. We are coming there. But where do we go when the civil service is an enabler of corruption, as those who have pointed it out have said, look, the civil service in Nigeria, we need to deal with it. How do we deal with that kind of plague?
Seun, you need to first understand the implications for good political leadership. The first challenge that you have, how did you people your civil service? Through cronyism and patronage that the civil servants enable, that the politicians enable. There's no equal opportunity employment. Okay? Your employment basis is not about meritocracy. Who makes that happen? What does the folks you have right now? If you have a job in any government agency that you know, there has to be a position left for the president, left for the vice, left for the senate president. By the time they finish filling all of these things, most of the time, what is at play is not merit, is not competence, is not capacity. So your civil service is a reflection of your political leadership. If you have, just take for instance, when President Muhammadu Buhari returned in 2015, the first signal, if you watched the civil service, was that some change was going to happen. But when they watched to a point and saw that their fears were not going to happen, what did happen? They reclined back into what they are used to. If we get our political leadership right, our civil service will fall in place. In these other places that you talked about Canada, you referred to these places where you want us to learn. The people who go into the civil service are your best, the best of your best. That's the way it is. You don't go into, civil service first. You finish first class from somewhere, you are brought into the State Department, okay, to work in the State Department. But who are the people who work in your civil service? Eventually, people who pay money, anybody who can pay money, even if you are qualified. Once you are able to pay money to get into that place, then the process is already.
Now, I go to where a lot of Nigerians might get upset, and it's the fact that you look at appointment of INEC chairman. It's a political appointment. National commissioners, RECs, those who conduct our elections. And there are those in that conversation today who says, look, as long as people get into public office, who thinks that they can buy their way into public office, they are not accountable to the people. And who are those who conduct those elections? Yet they are Nigerians, but who appointed them into office? We need to start fixing some of these issues, don't we?
So we together, you are aware, when these appointments, the recent appointments into the Independent National Electoral Commission, the civil society and the media came strongly to say there are people who have partisan inclinations. Who were those who were making that call? The opposition political parties did not join in that call. Why didn't they join in that call? Because they know that the fluidity between the opposition and position is that we criticize a process when we are not there, but when we get there, we're actually going to replicate
the status quo.
The status quo. So the business of opposition and criticism has been outsourced to civil society and the media, and that is why we are inviting the politicians and say, come and take your place.
So now another annoying position is, where are the opposition parties? Because now Nigerian people need to rise and be the opposition of what they see, and they need to start speaking up. The civil space need to now be more active.
You see, you cannot. There is in civil rule like the one we have, civil society role is very clear-cut. You'd have to engage. There is somebody whose responsibility is shadow government, opposition, in terms of policy, in terms of holding government accountable. All right? So you outsource that responsibility. If you saw the Ghana election, you talked about, yes, when you go to the threshold of 52%. No, that's not the challenge. The thing is that you have a party agency that is robust. Party agents that can, from the polling unit, mine results for their political parties. What do you have here? You have transactional party agents who can either sell out their party, and even when they mine those results from the polling units, they have no IREV of their own. There is no political party. You are a veteran in election observation right now. There is no political party that has its own result viewing portal that journalists, media can be invited to say, these are the results that we have collated. But in Ghana, you have party agents who, by the time that, even the election was going on, the results that have been mined from the polling units, the party is already aware of where it is going. So the big challenge is not so much about now making the people the opposition. We did that under the military because there was no vehicle to shadow the government in power. We cannot take that responsibility again. We have to put the leg of the politicians on the fire and their political parties.
We have a lazy opposition force
to play that responsibility. I just give you an example.
They only oppose because of public office, not because of policy.
We are in court because we challenged the appointment of people who have partisan inclination. We are in court. The opposition political parties did not challenge that. They are not bothered about it. You know this more than I do. And so the thing is that opposition has been outsourced to the media. So you are not talking enough. So you were in Edo. You are not speaking about what happened. Did you contest election? Were you in the ballot? Those who were in the ballot, who have responsibility to take on this responsibility, will outsource that responsibility and expect that me and you, and then citizens should. Yes, citizens should not just be interested in election. Citizens should be interested in governance. And that's where they are in. So who has been elected? You have been elected. Play your role. Make sure that the things for which you promised that you were going to do if you get elected happens. That is the big challenge for citizens.
And I think to a large extent, calling out the opposition today, look, Nigerians can see through you. And that's the fact. Nigerians see through them. Because the only thing that they are interested in, who becomes the owner of the next seat that is going to be up for contest. Not about the real issues, which are the policy, governance, the livelihood of the Nigerian people.
See, somebody is governor for 8 years. The place to experiment everything you want done is when you have the position of governor. How free is the party under you in your state? What was the kind of appointments? Okay? Did you allow for internal party democracy in nomination? Did you organize local government election when you held sway? If you organize local government election, what kind of local government election did you organize? You don't leave power and then begin to make demands that you had opportunity
to fix,
and then use force of personal example to begin to show the pathway. The truth is that collectively, we failed the majority of our people in terms of, because it hardly will you see anybody in that forum who is a newcomer. They've held positions, some for 8 years, some for 4 years. They've been MDs, they've been ministers, they've been everything. If they did some of the things that, they are today canvassing for, we will not be where we are. But it is not too late. That's why you have a situation in which we are saying, look, let us strengthen this democracy. It doesn't matter where you have come from. It doesn't matter what has happened in the past. Don't play the blame game. This is the time for solution activism. And solution activism is to say, we did well here, we can improve on it, we never did well, but the denier, to live in denial, to say, oh no, my time was the best time, that's not correct, because we lived in your time. Your time is not history, your time is current affairs. And so if it is current affairs, you have to be careful and check the audience that you are communicating with, to be sure that that audience does not have any amnesia, that it remembers and can call, to question. So when you have a conference, the conference is intended to achieve three things. One is to ensure that there is some reflection around the executive, the legislature, the political parties, the security system, the civil society space, how we can all galvanize and borrow each other muscle to create the kind of democracy that Nigeria requires. That's what this conference is about, Sheila.
Interesting. Kudos to you and your colleagues, Otive Buza of this world, the CDDs. Kudos to you guys for bringing this conversation to the front banner. Opposition, we see you and we see through you. Not only when you want to contest the election that you have the voice to speak, that your throat now opens up and like though you just took hot water and you now have clarity of voice. There is the opposition role. Go and Google what it means if you cannot read out and understand what the role of opposition is in a democracy. We will do our job as a media. We are not civil society players. Don't take our jobs different. Don't mistake our jobs. We are not. No journalist is a civil rights activist. The rest are the civil rights. They will do their jobs. We are to promote democracy and to report it. And you are not opposition also. If you are in the opposition, stand up today, speak and oppose the ruling power on the issues of policy and governance. If you are in the ruling party, you do know that one day you get out of office and people will hold you by the shirt and the trouser about what you're supposed to do when you're in office. It's enough for us to joke with the lives of Nigerian people.
Some of the people in power today, we are agents of restructure.
But what happens now?
Okay.
Let's not take Nigeria for a joke. The time to fix the country is now, and we can all do it together. Thank you so much. It's the one for joining us tonight.